Good evening. So we are back to the study of the Spirit's book. We are on chapter 5, which is the law of preservation. And Elmo stopped us last week on question 706. So we are going to start on question 707 when we talk about preservation, is the preservation of our living conditions on earth. We know that we are eternal spirits, so we are going to continue living regardless of what we do with this planet. If we end up the planet and we destroy everything, we will be responsible for it, but we will continue in a different world. If we preserve and help and increase the quality of life for all human beings incarnated in this planet, we are going to find a better planet when we come back for our next incarnation and for our for those that comes after us. So that's the objective. But we are eternal spirits. So regardless of what we do, we are going to continue living here or somewhere else. Okay, so we stopped on 706. Philip, 707, please.
There are always individuals who lack the means to survive, despite living surrounded by abundance. Who should be blamed for this? At the selfishness of humans, who too often prevents them to do what they need. Next, and most often, the individuals themselves are to blame. Christ said, "Seek and you shall find." But these words do not imply that all you have to do is look down on the ground to find anything that you may want. You must search for what you want passionately and with perseverance, without being discouraged by obstacles that are often only a means of testing your determination, patience, and resolve. While civilization increases our needs, it also increases our resources and means of survival. However, we must confess that there is much that still needs to be done. Civilization will achieve its task only when human beings no longer lack the necessities of life, unless this is through no fault other than their own. Unfortunately, many individuals choose the wrong path, and because nature has not intended it for them, they fail. That is when they lack the intelligence to succeed. There is room for everyone, but each person must assume his or her own place and not that of another. Nature cannot fairly be held responsible for the effects of a flawed social organization, nor for those of personal selfishness and ambition. We would have to be blind, however, if we did not acknowledge the progress that has already been accomplished in this direction among the most advanced nations. Philanthropy and science have focused on the betterment of humankind, and despite an increasing global population, they have managed to minimize the effects of insufficient production dramatically. Today, the most unfavorable years of an economic cycle are far less disastrous than in the past. For example, hygiene, which is a crucial point for public and individual health, and of which our ancestors had little or no knowledge, is a constant subject of scientific research and investigation. Likewise, refuge is provided for the unfortunate and suffering, and every new scientific discovery is made to contribute to the general well-being of all. May it be said that we have attained perfection Oh, certainly not. But what has been accomplished is just a glimpse of what may be done with perseverance. Human beings must focus on seeking practical improvements instead of wasting their energy on idealistic projects that set them back rather than pushing them forward.
Okay, thanks, Philip. So we have here the answer from the spirits, which is smaller, and then a longer explanation by Kardec, right? So we discussed this before, right? That we have to, nowadays we have enough food to feed the whole 8 billion and something people that we have here on Earth. What we haven't achieved yet is an efficient way of distributing the food for several different reasons. Maybe, you know, political disputes, lack of efficiency in preserving and storaging and transporting. A lot of food is wasted. But it goes beyond food, right? Because for us to survive, we need health assistance. We need social security in a way that can help those that are not in condition of provide for themselves. So these are all things that humankind has progressed, and you see Kardec talking here 170 years ago that it was already something that was being done, philanthropy and science helping those more advanced civilizations of that time, and even now, even more, right? I remember watching a movie about Sweden in the end of the 19th century, and it was really difficult place to live, right? They were very behind the rest of Europe in terms of progress. I think the movie was called Pell the Conqueror. I think that was the name of the movie. That's an old movie, like 25 years ago. And nowadays, Sweden is one of the most advanced countries in the world, right? So it's possible. It can be achieved if society and the spirits incarnated there decide to do it. South Korea is another example, right? It's one of the countries that that advances faster nowadays in terms of education. Is probably #1 in the world in terms of providing education for the youth. I don't watch this Korean series that they have a lot, but a lot of people are in love with those Korean series, right? But it shows the reality of what's the civilization nowadays there. And if you consider that by the end of the Korean War, this is 1950 something, Korea was it was not even a country in development, it was an underdeveloped country. And nowadays is one of the tigers of the world, right? A very advanced country. So it is possible, it is doable, but requires commitment, as Kardec says here, right? Or sorry, the spirits. You must search for what you want passionately and with perseverance, without being discouraged by obstacles. That's what these countries do, right? These countries that are advanced in these societies. And again, so we're talking about societies, right? Are the spirits incarnated in those countries better than other spirits? No, it's just a group of spirits that follow the common good and are committed to it. Choose leaders that will help them go in that direction, because what happens is in many places is that the political class ends up taking advantages, abusing, and not taking care of the population, right? Of course, you have different countries in the world, and you have more efficient, less efficient. But in countries in Northern Europe, right, in Denmark, Sweden, Finland, you can't say it's already a world of regeneration, right? If you want to look what's going to be a world of regeneration, you just go to one of those countries. You have free health, you have assistance for elderly, you have assistance for children. Don't they have any problems? Yes, they still have problems because we're not perfect spirits. It's not a perfect world, but the problems are in the minority, and in a less developed country or in a subdeveloped country, the problems are for the majority. So in some countries in the world, you have hunger, you have lack of health assistance to those in need. So, but it's not for all of them. The minority that are rich or rule the country, they have access to all of this. So we can see by the examples we have around that it is possible, that civilization can do. We already have the awareness of the necessity of doing it. We already have many spirits that understand the necessity of providing for their brothers and sisters means of survival. And again, we're never going to be at this level of evolution equal, right? There will always be differences, but these differences are important because it's what, at our level of evolution, it's what motivates us to learn, to look for different ways, right? You don't want everybody to be doctors, right? You need people to build bridges. You need people to produce food. You need people to cook. So you need different abilities to, if everybody works together, it's going to provide better results for society as a whole. So we have the ability, we have the knowledge. What is lacking in many places is the will and the desire to help our fellow brothers and sisters. We go back to the two main problems that we face as individual spirits, right? Pride and vanity, right? We think first about ourselves, second about ourselves, third about our families, fourth about our friends, and only then we start thinking about the strangers, right? When in reality, it should be willing to help anyone regardless of who they are, right? But we're not there. We still need to learn, but we are. The awareness of it, right? The fact that we can discuss this and the fact that we can share this, this understanding is already a first step, right? Could be a small step, but it's already a first step as we move forward, right? Kardec, what Kardec says here, that civilization will achieve its task only when human beings no longer lack the necessities of life, unless this is through no fault other than their own. So again, our physical body is a temporary cloth that we wear. So we can advance as much as we want, but the physical body is going to die, right? We can extend the life another, we're already reaching or close to 80 years on average life, right? Can we go to 100? Probably. Can we go to 100 and something? Is that what science thinks that we can go to 120, 130? Yes. But we're not going to be eternal. We are not going to have a eternal physical body. It's going to end. So the focus has to be primarily on our evolution as eternal spirits. Right? So the moral and intellectual evolvement of us spirits as eternal spirits. The focus on the survival of the physical body is very important because the physical body is the instrument that helps us live a regular life. If our physical body becomes too damaged and we cannot do anything, you know, we start depending on others instead of doing good, things by ourselves. But it's, you know, I think it's important for us to remember, right? I went to a spiritist center in Brazil now Tuesday that is focused on treatment, right? The spiritual treatment, what we do here through the passes in a more individual and focused way with beds and everything. It's a very beautiful work they do. But the presentation, how they start presenting every time they have the treatment, they said, we here help you treat your physical ailments, spiritual needs, but you have to remember that what needs healing is the spirit. We need to take care of the spirit first and foremost with us as eternal spirits. Of course, if we can help our physical body to improve, good. But sometimes it's not possible. And in there, we need to have resignation, acceptance to deal with the difficulty. So I liked what they do there, because it's a big spiritist center focused on spiritual treatment, right? Through what we do here on Mondays in a even more complex way, right? With separate rooms for people that have different needs, but that's the idea is, right? We need to remember that we need to improve our spiritual beings, eternal beings. Okay? Questions, comments?
Yeah, like putting at the individual level, the Spirit says, yeah, there is the fact that our selfishness contribute for people being deprived of the minimal necessities, but primarily it's people's laziness, individuals at their own fault.
Yeah.
I think that's very important to mention that over here. So if you take an example of even countries that you mentioned, Sweden, that is a developed country at this point, especially socially speaking, there are individuals there that are passing necessities. And there's no one else to blame, I'm sorry, than that individual, him or herself.
Yeah.
We see people going hungry in New York City. There's only two causes, pride and lack of understanding. There is no reason for anybody to go starve in New York City with all the selfishness that we see, all the hardship in the city. There is no need for anyone to be hungry in the city. It's individual's pride or complete lack of understanding that you can associate with pride. They're so prideful that doesn't take the effort to learn something because they think they know everything themselves.
Yeah, also mental diseases, right? Which
Mental
is
disease.
it's another component, but mental diseases end up being a consequence sometimes.
And it falls into the selfishness of the society.
Yeah.
It definitely falls into the selfishness of the society, but that's minority.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the question could be why there are spirits that are having these issues in Sweden, right? Because the society provides everything. Well, there are spirits that need to have the opportunity to incarnate in a country like that to learn and to engage themselves in the work that they need for themselves. And sometimes, we fail. We all fail, right? So you have the opportunity, you miss the opportunity. Next time they are going to reincarnate in a place that they'll have to struggle. And then the struggle is to survive because they didn't take advantage of an opportunity of a place that provided everything to them, right? Okay.
$708.
Yes.
Are there any social situations in human life when the will is incapable of obtaining the means of existence? And in that case, the deprivation of the most fundamental necessities is a consequence of such circumstances. Yes, but this would be a trial that the Spirit was aware of having to endure. The merit of individuals involved in such a trial will be based on their surrendering to God's will. If their intelligence does not free them from their troubles, if death occurs, they should accept it without complaint, remembering that their hour of true freedom has arrived, and that yielding to despair at the last minute, no matter how little, may cause them to lose the reward of their prior resignation.
Yeah, so there are places in the world that spirits have no, other incarnate spirits have no access to what they need, to the basic needs, right? And it's very difficult to achieve any means of surviving what just happened in Gaza with this war, right? That children were dying of starvation. We're not going to enter into politics here, right? But what is the trial for the spirit? The spirit or the spirit have to go through that situation for many different reasons, as a consequence of something they did on other incarnations, being on the other side, being the oppressor, now the oppressed, or because they want to incarnate in this place as a mission to help those around them, so more evolved spirits, or they want to face as a trial, meaning a trial is not a consequence, it's a challenge for you to learn from the situation. And again, if they are in that trial, they have the ability to learn something from it and to do something about it. If it's an expiation, sometimes the individual has not much means to deal with it. But all the circumstances, in all of them, the individual has what the individual can learn from there, as the Spirit says. Accepting without complaint, with resignation, active resignation, as we say here, really, trying to do the best they can. But if they cannot, have resignation, acceptance, and normally the ones that are in, someone asked the other day, and then people are always asking, what's the difference between trials and atonement? How do we know if this is a trial or this is an atonement or expiation? The reaction of the individual to the challenge. If they accept with resignation, patience, most likely is a trial. If they rebel, if they make their lives even more difficult, normally it's an expiation or an atonement. Again, we're not going to say 100% of the cases. Maybe you choose a trial and then you rebel yourself against the trial. We are imperfect spirits. We can rebel. So you look at and you think it's an expiation. No, it was a trial that the individual failed, the spirit failed. Or and you can have spirits that will have it as an expiation and will accept it with resignation and will face the challenge. So the important thing for us to learn from here is to try to accept the difficulties, try the best that we can to overcome the challenges. If we did our best and still cannot overcome, have resignation and acceptance to understand that it is something that we need to go through, and hope for things to pass, like Mother Mary of Jesus told Chico Xavier, right, when he was struggling. This will pass, everything passes. So all troubles that we are facing are temporary. We are eternal spirits. So not everything that we go through will have an end. Maybe it's not going to be this incarnation, maybe it will be another one, but we'll have an end. And the sooner it's not accept, we internalize the understanding of this and it becomes a part of who we are in terms of accepting the challenges and learning how to accept them with resignation, faith, and understanding, the better will be for us, the more evolved we'll be, and the faster we'll be able to overcome these difficulties. Okay?
Just keep in mind that if still the calamities are necessary, don't you wrong to cause those calamities.
Yeah.
So if you are witness genocide, starvation throughout this world without doing nothing, we have a share of responsibility on that also.
Yeah. Yes. We are again, our responsibility goes from the individual to the global, right? So we are here, 8 billion people incarnated, 20 something discarnated, responsible for this planet altogether. And we are going to face the consequences of our actions, all of us, at different levels, but all of us, according to our knowledge, according to our involvement, according to our lack of involvement or active involvement, right? Everyone has their own individual journey, but responsibility goes to all of us. Okay. 709.
When during extreme crisis, where human beings are forced to consume the flesh of other human beings to survive, are they committing a crime? If so, does the fact their action is based on an instinct of self-preservation lessen the crime? I have already responded by saying that there is more merit in undergoing life's trials with courage and resignation. In these cases, human beings resort to both homicide and commit a crime against nature. This results in dual culpability that receives dual atonement.
Okay, so here the question is, and then we have to separate, because when we study this question, it always comes to mind the plane accident, right, in Chile, that the individuals consume the flesh of other individuals, deceased individuals in the accident. This is one thing. This is survival, trying to survive with the resources and means available, but they didn't kill each other to survive. There is the problem. If you commit a crime, killing a fellow human being in order for you to survive, you are committing a double crime, as they say, right? It's both homicide and a crime against nature, which is what they are addressing here, right? So if I don't kill my fellow being, I'm going to die of hunger. Better to die of hunger, right? Instead of increasing your responsibility and making the future more difficult for you, right? Of course, this is extreme. This is unlikely to happen. Of course, at the time of Kardec, it was probably more common because he would face these situations of nothing around to help. But we had this plane accident that became a movie, became books. The individuals that did that, some of them still have psychological traumas and difficulties in dealing with it, which is understandable. But they were not committing a crime. The other individuals were already dead. And the spirits had already left their physical body. It's just a physical body that was there, and it became food for them. So in that case, it was not a crime. It was not something against the natural law. They were trying to survive, just that. It's the survival instinct that we come with it, and it is what drives us to continue living, right? So that's what they are talking here about here, okay?
710.
Yeah.
In worlds where the physical makeup of living beings is purer than on Earth, do these beings need food? Yes, but their food matches their nature. Their food would not be enough for your basic stomachs, and those beings could not digest your heavier food.
An interesting question, right? When we talk about more evolved worlds, they still need food. Yes, they do. But it's a different type of food. If we go there, we wouldn't survive with their food because our physical body needs the food that we have here. And they could not eat our food here because it would cause them harm. Well, it doesn't happen because they are there, we're here. But if we analyze our own food, and we are already having a transformation into a lot of people that does not eat red meat or even any meat, they are become vegetarians. We are learning how to find what we need in terms of nutrients for our physical body without destroying animals, right? Is this the ideal? Is this the future? Well, maybe. We cannot transform everything, because if everyone, our 8 billion people stop eating red meat, what's going to happen is a world catastrophe, because we are not prepared to do that, right? We have too much of the production and too much need of this type of food. But can we slowly move to healthier foods? We are already doing that, right? And we'll continue to do that. If we look at 100 years ago, we didn't even know about healthier foods, or we were just eating what was there, what they're doing, right? And you had all the diseases associated. Nowadays, with science advancing more and more, we understand better what foods help, what foods don't help. And again, what we have in science today is not going to be the same that it's going to have in 100 years. I remember my father loved eggs, right? And at a certain point, a medicine concluded that eggs were bad for cholesterol, right? And my father had high cholesterol, and he had to stop eating eggs because he was following medicine at that time, and it was something that for him it was very painful. And then by the end of his life, it was not eggs, so he started consuming eggs a lot to make it for the lost time. So science changes. We cannot take it, everything that science is telling us today, it is many times is what science has of most advanced research. But it's not 100% guaranteed, right? Science evolves and changes and understands better. So when we're talking about what our physical body needs, we need to find balance, right? Because if we decided to be too radical, we're going to make life difficult for ourselves. Some people can live with it. But science is not 100% guaranteed that these things are really going to provide everything you need. They have a good amount of trustful information that it helps, that will probably help you and will probably provide with what you need, but it's not guaranteed. So we need to balance things and be very careful on our choices. But yes, our food will continue to evolve, our physical bodies will continue to evolve, and X number of years from now, we're not going to be eating this heavy food that we eat nowadays, right? I was just in Uruguay for the 11th World Spiritist Congress, right? And Uruguay is a small country that meat is the basic food, right? They cannot even think of they have vegetarian dishes, but you have a long menu with one small vegetarian dish there. So people that, Arturo Valadares, that is a vegetarian, right? And Nelaha, that's a vegetarian also. They have difficulties, they have to find their ways around, because it's a place where culturally they are used to do that for a very long time. So you have to respect and understand, right? You go to India, you're not going to eat cow because they're sacred there, and they're used to it. They have their own food, they survive, it's good for them, they found a way. So we need to understand the different places and aspects and how things are. We cannot be radical or fanatic, right? We need to try to find balance with what helps us, different individuals, different necessities. Okay.
The reality, what evolves is the spirit. As the spirits evolves, it becomes more spiritualized and less materialized. Therefore, its very spirit will form physical bodies less material. And that way you have lesser need of the good kind of food that you need today. So maybe there are ones over there that the physical bodies does not have a digestive system anymore. They are able to absorb the nutrients from the air. So for them to have a respiratory center in which they are able to absorb from the air all the nutrients that kind of physical body requires. Of course, they'll not survive here. Of course, if they have come on a mission, they will have to reincarnate, use the kind of body that we have, would be a trauma for them, a difficulty for them to deal with this very dense, materialized body, but they'll do as a mission. But we could not go there because our spirit would not be able to form the kind of physical body that will survive with nutrients from the air.
Yeah. Again, just read Nosolari and you see about food in the spiritual world here in this planet, right?
Yeah, but you're talking about physical bodies.
Yeah, we're talking about physical bodies, but
Spiritual world.
yeah, we're not talking about the spiritual world, but you see that we get used to the food here, we go back to the spiritual world, we want to eat because we did our whole life, right? So in Nosolari, you have a chapter that deals with food in the spiritual world also, for if anyone is curious about it.
Well, I was just remembering that a few years ago, vegetarian, if you talk them to a person who was vegetarian, was already rare. Vegan, forget it.
Yeah.
And these days, a lot of people are vegetarian and vegans in restaurants in general. Okay, they have some countries with their own traditions and cultures, but in general, restaurants are having every time a bigger and bigger menus on vegetarian and vegans options.
What is this?
So-
Sign of progress.
Sign of progress. Yeah, even with all the industry trying to convince us that some potato chips are made of a mass of whatever, that's healthy. But we are progressing. I see that, like, and as Elaha says, if you cannot kind of stop eating meat because you've been doing this for many years, reduce the size of the steak.
Yeah.
Instead of 2 big steaks, get one, smaller one. And then I was interested, last week, Leo was traveling and I was home alone. No meat at all during the week. And I said, oh, it's Friday, I didn't have any meat, any. I'm okay.
You survived.
I survived. So Okay, I'm not there yet. No, it was just 1 week. But I'm reducing. I'm getting smaller amount of it.
Yeah, but I always like to remind everyone, right? When we start talking about this, what Jesus said, right? Much more important than what goes into your mouth is what comes out of your mouth, right? So your thoughts, your vibrations, they are much more important than what you eat. Should we eat better? Absolutely. Should we try to eat always to improve what we are eating and taking care of physical body? Absolutely. But to be a pure vegetarian and you are poisoning the ambient with inferior thoughts, and it really, that's not the path, right? There's a lot of advanced spirits that came through Earth, ate meat and everything. And again, we know that our physical body can survive without it if we do the proper treatment. But if we are going to be miserable because we shouldn't eat something, no, it's better to find balance, right? Reduce, start to change the diet, but focus on our spiritual growth, right? Again, going back to the spirit.
The balance that you mentioned.
Yes.
Because at some point before, if you didn't have meat, there was no protein.
Yeah.
As you're not thinking protein. And then now you can have beans and you can have peanuts and you can have all different things to take care of the protein in your system.
Yeah. And I last week I heard someone saying we're focusing too much on proteins. We're over focusing on proteins. That's not the most important thing. I didn't listen to all of it, but there's always, it's healthy. We should study. We should find different paths. I don't know if it's right or wrong, and I don't want to get into there, but there are people that are questioning even the healthy options, saying that there are healthier options than the healthy options. But science is there to help us, right?
You also have to be careful. There's different industries putting out studies over there or supporting studies out there because they want people to consume certain things.
Their own interests, of course.
So you have to be very smart in what you're reading, what is the source.
Yeah.
And again, keep what you said in mind. Science is not always absolutely right. Science makes mistakes, but the beauty is that science corrects itself.
Yes. There is no taboos in science, right? In serious science. Yeah. Okay.
7-Eleven?
Enjoying the fruits of the earth,
7-Eleven. Do all human beings have a right to enjoy the fruits of the earth? This right is a direct corollary of the need to live. God does not impose a duty without providing the means of carrying it out.
Right? Yes. Responsibility also. But many of us humans abuse our rights without responsibility. So we abuse the fruits of earth and don't allow others to enjoy the fruits of earth that should belong to everybody, should be used by everybody and not abused. So we are incarnated, we have the right, we have our rights and our responsibilities. But many of us only think about our rights, do not think about our responsibilities. And that's when we get into trouble.
$7.12.
Yeah.
Why has God made using material things attractive? For two reasons. First, to motivate human beings to accomplish their mission, and second, to test them by temptation. What is the purpose of temptation? To develop human reason, so that it may safeguard humankind. There's something overriding
Sorry.
to safeguard humankind from excess. If human beings are pressed to use physical things based on their value or usefulness alone, their indifference could have compromised the harmony of the universe. For that reason, God has given humans enjoyable attractions that lead them to carrying out divine plans. God uses these attractions to also test them with temptations that cause them to commit actions that their human reason should protect them against.
Okay, so the law of progress, right? For us to progress at our level of evolution as spirits, imperfect spirits, we need the carrot, right? We need to chase the carrot that we put in front of the animal, right? And so for us to chase progress, we need to be motivated. And how do we motivate ourselves? By trying to get things that we don't have. The desire to acquire things that we don't have, the desire to find ways to live a more comfortable life are the purposes that most spirits have during their incarnation at our level of evolution, right? As we become more evolved, the less we will need those things, right? So temptation and desire to acquire things that we don't need will be reduced. But at our level of evolution, right, we love, the shiny objects that we find in front of us. And again, it helps us. At our stage, it helps us. Of course, there are abuses because we are imperfect spirits, temptation, and with that, we make mistakes, and humankind has make advances and goes forth, forward two steps and then back one step, right? We see a lot of things happening around us that are difficult sometimes to understand, but it is part of the law of progress. We need to want more in order to progress. That's the basic of our stage of development here. We talked about the law of work, right? We need to work to survive. And the reward for the work enables us to acquire things that we want, not necessarily that we need, but the wants are what drives us, and the wants drives the progress of humankind and the progress of humanity by creating things that are that we are tempted to have, that we want to have, the latest model of phone, the latest car, the latest other things. Not everybody desires that or wants that. There are people that want, but one thing that the majority of us incarnate beings, we want something we don't have, right? We always, not all of us, but the majority of us want something we don't have. And that's not, at our stage of evolution, it's not a bad thing per se. It's what motivates us to progress, to acquire, to work, to learn, right? I want to some things that I want to achieve, I need to study, I need to learn, and helps our intellectual evolution, right? So again, God's law is perfect. If we have these around us, is because it makes sense. It has a purpose, right? So everything that God creates has a purpose. And at our stage of evolvement, we still need the carrot in front of us we need the desires and the wants to help us progress. Okay.
In verse 704, the Spirit tells us only what's necessary is useful. This path is not useful. I think temptation helps us to make the difference, to know what's my necessity and what is superfluous. And you need to go through the experience of having the temptation, of having the superfluous to understand what is superfluous, what's not.
Yeah. And also understand that sometimes the superfluous becomes necessity, right? With the evolvement, right? You talk about cell phones, right? I remember when they first appeared, I knew one or two people that had cell phones, and I looked at them and that, God, you spend so much money on these toys, right? Nowadays, most places that you live, you need a cell phone, right? Because landlines are no longer, nobody has landlines anymore, but cell phones, it's part of what we need to survive. So it's no longer superfluous, right? But it was at a certain time, right?
No, travel to places in the world, there is households, there is no toilets in their house, everybody has a cell phone in their hands.
Yeah.
There was no means of hygiene, but everybody has a cell phone.
And again, the cell phone is both necessity and superfluous at the same time, because it is a necessity for a lot of things, but there is a lot of superfluous things in the cell phones that we don't need. But it is progress, right? We continue progressing. That's I was talking to someone in the Congress and that works in the scientific world, right? And he said that I thought it was very interesting. We're talking about AI, right? And he said the people that work with AI and study AI, they are no longer predicting what's going to happen in 5 years, because they cannot forecast 5 years. Too long for them. They can forecast only 2 to 3 years in terms of advancement. More than that is just pure guess with no solid evidence, right? Because in the past, they would work with 5 years projections. They no longer can work with 5-year projections. 2, maximum 3 years projection, because of the speed of the advancement of science. We need to advance morally. That's what's lacking, and we need to. Eventually, we will have to make the effort on the moral aspect of the evolution, but apparently we're not there yet. Still need to struggle a little bit more. Yeah, you're going to say something, Nilsson.
Well,
Forgot.
that's fine.
Sorry, we interrupted you both. We and Elmo interrupted you. Yeah.
Tonight I'm gonna be in bed. Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
It's talking about attractions and all of that. It was just like a comment of when and it's still probably happening, where children do chores in order for them to obtain money, in order for them to get that bike or that roller skate or the things that they want. So it's like it's an attraction, especially for children, and Christmas is coming.
It's education, right?
Yeah.
It's how we educate them. It's
Yeah.
important
So
for
that's
us to
just with
educate.
the attraction.
Yeah.
Things.
All right, I think we'll stop here. We'll continue next week. There's still some couple of questions on this item, and I don't want to do one only and then leave just the last one. So we come back next week. We're still going to talk about superfluous, necessity and superfluous. It's the next item, actually. So we're going to go back to that. So for those that missed of course, for all those that didn't go to the World Spiritist Congress, that all of you did not go, today was really the video. It was not live, right? So today all the videos were released. We sent on our email. The lectures are in Portuguese and Spanish. I'm not sure. I didn't check if the translations came together, and I don't think so. There was English translation and Portuguese translation, Spanish translation. But if you can, there are some very interesting presentations there, round tables. The youth part, the first Spiritist Youth Congress was wonderful. All children that were there, or not children, youth, it was up to 25. They absolutely loved it. So that was the best part of the Spiritist Conference. So if you want to watch it, some of the lives, they are available now. You can go to the International Spiritist Council website, or you can check on our email, weekly email. We posted there. Saturday, the United States Spiritist Federation lecture is going to be by our friend Andrea Marshall from Florida. She's going to talk about Allan Kardec, Missionary of Hope. October 3rd was the birth date of Kardec that was commemorated. Book club next week, chapter 22. And this Sunday is the third Sunday of the month. We are going to study the Mediums book. Okay? Carol, can you do our final?